This is going to be an odd video considering the fact that I am in a state where my work is doing that thing that it always does, where it puts me on 16-hour shifts multiple days in a row, and I've gotten like 6 hours of sleep the past 2 days. So I'm a couple of, I'm just a couple of hours away from absolute delirium at this point. So I'm gonna try and be as clear and concise in this conjecture that I've come up with at this point. I'm just gonna try my best to handle this situation the only way I know how, which is yelling into this phone. So let's see where we go from here. So the roval race has happened, and like always, I am left feeling dissatisfied in general with many different things. Oh, the heated seat just kicked in, and like, it is an indescribable feeling, ladies and gentlemen. To go from, my first car when I was 16 that barely even had a suspension, let alone, it didn't even have a CD player, dude. I had a tape deck in here. And to go from that only 8 years later, after getting my driver's license, and to have heated seats, man, dude. Anyway, the delirium, like I said, delirium. God, I've completely lost my place already. I am dissatisfied with the roval once again. And that being said, the race on Saturday night, which was 2 nights ago since it's midnight 30 right now, the roval Xfinity race that took place in 2020 was probably my favorite race to watch since the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge in Xfinity Series now. When I was actually watching it, I was, like, on the edge as far as the nerves were concerned, because, for the whole race, like, Michael Annett was in the top 10. The fact that Michael Annett spent the entire length of a road course race in the top 10, regardless of the circumstances that led up to this, I was basically on the edge of my mental sanity. And the fact that Riley Herbst was competitively battling for the lead on a road course, needless to say, it was a shock to the system to see that transpiring before my very eyes. The point that I'm trying to make, though, the overarching point that I'm trying to convey during this video, is that why was last night's race as good as it was? Why was the first 2 stages of Sunday's race decent? And I'm starting to think that I understand the fundamental takeaway that I, lost out on in the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge. Because the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge is probably my favorite NASCAR race that I've ever watched. And at that time, I interpreted this as, okay, rain races are pretty good. Rain races make things a little bit more exciting. Hoping for rain every weekend when it's a road course now, However, another takeaway from that race is that Mid-Ohio suddenly became my favorite track on the entire NASCAR circuit. Now, when you get an emotional investment into something, it clouds your judgment. We see it everywhere. Those opinion shows on, the original Fox Sports one, Skip and Shannon garbage, those opinion shows that every sports media college student thinks that they're going to get on. Laugh at my clown ass. Those shows, while some of them are, obviously scripted, they're just bloviating for the sake of ratings. sometimes emotional investments really do cloud your judgment. And that can even trickle in to the actual, in this case, sport itself. You'll see team owners start playing favorites. You'll see the broadcast team start playing favorites. And that human investment, that human personal investment into something is a fundamental negative when it comes to objectively, presenting the action as it was. If you want to get an objective, judgment of how the events that took place this weekend, happened, if you want that objective review of something, honestly, it would probably be best to go to someone who isn't even invested in that that medium, It would be best to go to like someone who doesn't even care about NASCAR, who's never seen it in their lives, and present it to them. That's probably the most raw reaction and probably the most objective that you're going to find. Why am I saying this? Is because my favorite track in all of NASCAR after the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge was Mid-Ohio. And the problem with that is that the last 3 races at Mid-Ohio, the ones that followed the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge, were pretty garbage. They were pretty atrocious. As a matter of fact, they were follow the leader, race was basically over before it started kind of deal. And, that combined with the fact that, it had a decent enough finish in 2017 to where, it was a battle between Hemrick and Sam Hornish, I'm pretty sure. That it was a pretty decent run to the finish, but like the whole overarching race was really non-existent. And then the next year in 2018, where once again, absolutely nothing happened, but Allgaier won, the judgment is clouded when you have that personal emotional investment, which is why I believe not kind of shifting the tone here. The reason that I think the emotional investment into something is going to cloud your objective judgment, I think the reason that everyone is so ardently defending the roval, even when we have actual road courses that are going to be coming into the series next year, and we don't really even necessarily need the roval as a concept anymore now that the track contracts can be negotiated, now that we could actually maybe run back up to Montreal, hop across the border to Mexico City, maybe even take a cargo plane to Interlagos, I don't know. But the thing is, I think the reason that people are so emotionally attached to the roval is because of that first race that happened. The first race at the roval in the Cup Series was pretty trash. Not much happened. The first stage was a battle between Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson. I think it was Larson drove off to like a 5-second lead to start, and then Kurt drove him down and won the stage. That's more action than you saw at the track the entire season last year in the Cup Series. But at the same time, I don't even remember what happened in the second stage of that event. I don't remember. And the only thing that I do remember from the roval is that first stage, just because it was all fresh. I was taking in everything. The only other thing that I remember is when everyone's controller disconnected and hit the wall in turn 1. And then that set up a 2-lap battle to the finish between a guy who had, used up his stuff trying to drive through the field and really didn't even have the best car that day in Truex, going up against someone who we know now is on the team with the best road course setups, equipment, something something is different in the Hendrick cars, because I don't think Alex Bowman is that good of a road racer that he's got, the best average finish at the Roval. I don't think so. I don't think that Jimmie Johnson, who has struggled ever since the halfway point of 2017, who is omega trash everywhere else, except for this year where he's been decent in a couple of places, suddenly he is running in the top 5 on the road courses. William Byron, who I still think has a higher ceiling than Chase Elliott, but he still struggled on several occasions this season. He couldn't do anything that first Dover race. Came back and finished second in the next one, but it was really off the back of, the pit call late, the caution coming out when it did. But Byron has been pretty much irrelevant all season. And suddenly we come to the Roval, and he's leading a bunch of laps. Hendrick is overpowered at road courses now. But my point is that Johnson was better than Truex at the end of the Roval race in 2018, and that's really the only reason why people remember that race the way that they do. If Truex had a better car, fresher tires, or whatever at that point, he would have driven off and just won the race. The fact that Jimmie Johnson chased him down and was fighting to keep a streak of 16 consecutive seasons of wins in the bag, he and that and all that, in the final 2 laps of the event, because it was just a 2-lap to go restart. It was just 2 laps. It wasn't a 50-lap run to the finish. It was just those 2 laps. Either one of them could have driven off at any point after, 5 or 6 laps. But that was a 2-lap dash to the finish. And Johnson wrecked himself in Truex, giving the win to Blaney. The rest of the race wasn't even that good. Even for a road course. I feel like, Watkins Glen was a lot more competitive. I know that the 2019 Watkins Glen race, I call it trash because Truex obviously had the best car, but because of the air, he always would try to make the pass, then he'd drop back just a little bit on one lap, and he'd drive him right back down again. As opposed to 2018, where Elliott absolutely was the better driver that day, and Truex wouldn't have even won anyway because of running out of fuel. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. Is that the 2018 Watkins Glen race, I genuinely think, was one of the best finishes of 2018, and yet it appears like the exact same finish played out in 2019. But it's clear Truex had such a much better car than Elliott. He was driving, he was rolling center better, he was entering corners better, exit, and the only problem that he had was on exit was because, he couldn't put the power down because there was no power. Anyway, that's not even the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is that people hold the Roval higher than they do other tracks because of that 2018 race. People got emotionally invested in that 2018 race, just like I got emotionally invested with Mid-Ohio after the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge. The problem is that we got attached to the track, not the finish. The finish of the race in a vacuum, as its own standalone thing, obviously, very exciting, very good. The circumstances surrounding it, is what made it that way. Truex on slightly more worn tires because he had to drive through the field. Johnson with a better car but running in second. And a wreck at the end. That gave the win to third place. Crazy, right? It wasn't the Roval itself that created that scenario. You could say that maybe it was because of everyone wrecking into turn one on the restart because, they came to restarts into turn one faster than they do actually under, green conditions. So in that sense, maybe you could say, yes, the track contributed to that, but it really wasn't the track itself. The reason I bring the Mid-Ohio Challenge up in 2016 is because it wasn't the track that made the race exciting. It wasn't the track that made every single lap unpredictable. What I really love about the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge is that every single lap, you have no idea what's going to happen next. At any moment in time, the leader could just drive off the track through barely any fault of his own. Just pushing the pedal like 1% too much could make him spin out. In 2019, the race was over before it started. To be honest, today the race was over before it started. This race was over last year, dude. Before the season even started. But the difference last night is because the absolute tidal monsoon that enveloped the entire racetrack. Every single lap on Saturday, you had no idea what was going to happen next. At any moment in time, anyone could drive off the track. Chase Briscoe, the most talented driver in the series, lost the race because he hit a puddle. A fucking puddle. That wouldn't have happened today. A, because there were no puddles really at the end. And B, because... Actually, that's the only thing. There is no B. But that's the difference. There wasn't a fundamental part of the racetrack in its design that created any level of actual unpredictability. The chicane is the exact same way that it was last year. The infield is the exact same way it was last year. The pit road speed limit, is the exact same way that it was last year. Nothing changed between 2019 and 2020. The only thing that changed was rain. The rain is what made the race exciting. It wasn't the track. It was the rain. It was the conditions. And that's why I think last night is my second favorite race and my most favorite race that I've watched since the 2016 Mid-Ohio Challenge. You had no idea what was going to happen next. Every single lap, anything could have happened on Saturday. On Sunday, once Elliott had the lead, the fucking race was over. It was over. Nothing was going to happen. It was over. There wasn't any element of, maybe it's going to rain just a little bit harder into the corner this time, and they're going to misjudge braking and drive off the track. No, it wasn't there. Everyone, just drove the track, and the race was over. So, yeah. I still think the roval is trash, and coming here, honestly, might have been a mistake. Making this track, creating this monstrosity, may have been a mistake. We may have had the blessing of a incomparably insane race to start things off in 2018, but as a result, we've had to sacrifice every race after it because it's just going to be the same thing over and over because Hendrick builds OP as fuck road course cars and Elliott is just good enough to win every single time driving the cars. So yeah, you're right. Should be a thrill watching this race every year for the next 40 years, if NASCAR even makes it past 2024. Yeah. But that was kind of just a stream of consciousness thing. Like I said, I enjoyed the Xfinity race. I didn't enjoy it while it was happening because I was way too emotionally invested. But looking back on it, I really enjoyed it. But And I know I really didn't talk about what actually happened in the races because I feel like that's not really the point that I'm trying to get across in this video. The point that I'm trying to get across is that I'm extremely fucking tired, number one. Number two is that we are all clouded in our judgment of this racetrack due to the first race that it held. It wasn't even that good of a race, but the finish saved it. If that finish didn't happen, if Truex just drove off, people would have been yelling for them to take the race off the schedule. They would have been calling it an abject failure. But no, instead, we got one of the most insane finishes to a Cup Series race of all time, and we were saddled with a mediocre racetrack as a result. But since Elliott's won the race, everyone's going to defend it and say that I'm stupid, so whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the end of this video has arrived. I am extremely fucking tired. I just want to go to sleep, man. That's all I really want. That's all I've ever really wanted in life, was just sleep. But apparently I'm not allowed to have that. Maybe I'll be able to sleep when I'm dead, guys. I'll be able to sleep when I'm dead. That's what it feels like at this point. Anyway, I'm pretty sure Corbin Forrester isn't running any more races this year, so I finally have an excuse to stop watching. Will I take this opportunity? I doubt it. We'll find out next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in whatever I make next. Oh, by the way, Jim Utter is an asshat. Good news video on the way. Bye!